Welcome, welcome, welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. I'm Beth Bergen. I'm a global leadership and communication coach, and I particularly work with executives, with managers, with business owners to help them to develop leadership and communication skills so that they can communicate with clarity, with confidence, and to have real impact. I'm here most Tuesdays at 1 p.m. New glasses. They're sliding down my nose. At 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We've been doing a lot of, I've been having a lot of conversations with my coaching clients, both new and existing leaders. And I've identified that there is a couple of common behaviors which can really undermine your success as a coach. And one of them that I'd like to talk about today is expectations. It's expectations. Most of us think they're awesome. Like, it's great to have expectations because we're going to attach them to the standards that we have. And yeah, that'll be really awesome. It's actually not so awesome. It's not so awesome. And you might be wondering why. Well, there's a real difference. And what I want to talk about today is how you can manage your expectations so that they don't manage you. Now, there's a real difference between criteria for behavior, criteria for performance, and the sorts of things that you work out and you agree on around KPIs or around the performance of an employee or around what a relationship or a friendship's going to look like. There's a real difference between that agreed upon criteria and expectations. So what are expectations? Well, an expectation is not, it's not an agreement between people. It's a belief. It's a belief that I might have or that you might have that a certain outcome, a certain event, a certain set of behaviors might happen. You might also call it like a hallucination. You might also think that it's your hope or your idea of what the future might hold, and that that's based on some strongly held assumptions that you have. It's a natural human experience to place expectations. So why is Beth talking about them then? Why is she telling us that we need to manage them before they manage us? Well, think about this. You planned a special surprise for someone that you love. You've done everything. You've got the house ready, you've cooked dinner, you've put the rose petals out, whatever it might be that you know are their favourite things. You've done all that for them. And you're there absolutely anticipating and placing an expectation in your mind about how they're going to respond to that. And you're really excited about it because this is you showing how much you care. And what happens is that they come through the door and they go, God, I've had an awful day today. I can't believe it. I'm just going to lie in the bath and have a drink. And you're thinking, what? What are they doing? Who do they think they are? And actually, there's a lot of emotion that's now attached to this. Off they've gone, they're in the bath, they're having a drink. They're trying to debrief themselves, come down from the awful day that they've had. But you're here and you're disappointed and you're angry and you're frustrated. When you realize that those expectations are yours and that the other person had no obligation to fill them because they didn't know it was happening, it makes it easier to deal with that disappointment, that frustration. And it actually makes it a whole heap easier for you to laugh about it rather than to hold on to that anger and resentment, because it's our attachment to the expectation that creates the issue. It's our attachment to the expectation that creates the issue. Yeah. So when we manage the expectations, when we're able to manage those expectations, then we're not going to be affected by the consequences. When we manage those expectations, we're not going to be affected by the consequences. Now, there are two main ways that expectations will trip you up. There are the expectations that you have of others. And I've just shared that awesome example with you doing something special for one of your loved ones. Yeah. So that's an expectation that you have of them. You might also expect that your team will do the work. You might also expect that the person will think like you and carry the task or the activity or engage in whatever's going on in the same or similar way that you do. That's your expectation of others. The second way that expectations will trip us up is when others have expectations of us. So I'm going to run through some tips for how you can manage both types of those expectations. So when it's your own expectations, this is us with the best guess. We've got lots of hope. We're figuring that this is how it's all going to come together. And usually we've got some emotion attached to that. So here are my 3 tips around that. The first one is never assume. Never, ever assume. When you're in doubt, ask. Ask what people want. Ask what people need. Don't assume that your team will do the work. Don't get caught up in everyone, they must all like me. Don't get caught up in, I need to know these things. Why aren't they telling me? If you haven't, let them know. Don't assume. The expectation will start to go away. No expectation doesn't mean that your standards have lowered. The standard is still there. The expectation is a belief, a hope, a best guess that you have. So that's the first one. The second one is don't project your expectations onto others, because this is where it starts to get really uncomfortable. It gets uncomfortable when things go wrong. It gets uncomfortable when things fail. And it particularly gets uncomfortable and quite emotional for you when people haven't lived up to those expectations. You know, we often hear that saying, you know, you put someone up on a pedestal. And you know, there are others who say, don't put me up on that pedestal because I might not be able to live up to what you expect of me. Our sports people, our performers, our musicians, our actors and actresses, we place these huge expectations on them about their behaviour, and we hold them horribly to account when they don't meet them in a way that we think they should, or that we believe society thinks they should. So that's the second one. Don't project those expectations onto others. The third one is enjoy today now. Be in the moment. Be prepared to identify, I don't need to compare myself to other people. I don't need to place these expectations. Make sure that what you're doing is identifying, I can be happy now. I don't need to wait until I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when my team performs. I'll be happy when I lose 20 kilos. I'll be happy when I win the lotto. I'll be happy when I get a new job. All of those expectations are comparing you to something else, and they're holding you stuck. Now, this doesn't mean you don't set goals, because you do. Make goals. Goals are different from expectations. Make those goals and make those targets and start moving towards the things that you want. So those 3 tips are a way to get you started with managing your own expectations of others. Let's look now at managing others' expectations of you. And I've got 3 tips here that are really important. The first one is communicate. Communicate, over communicate. Be a crazy communicator. Set those boundaries. Tell people this is when I'm available, this is when I'm not available. Make sure that you set boundaries around your flexibility. Make sure that you don't fall into the trap of being left without any kind of choice or leaving all of that kind of thing to chance. If you don't know that this is an expectation in the workforce, and very often expectations aren't verbal ones, remember they're a belief, they might even be a hallucination in someone's mind. If you don't understand them and you haven't set boundaries, then there can be really big misunderstandings into that space. So that's the first one. Communicate, over communicate. Be a crazy communicator. The second one is anticipate problems. Anticipate what those problems might be. Now, I am not encouraging you here to be overthinking. Don't do that. Let's not get into overthinking. That's a conversation for a different day. But think about what's the worst case scenario that might happen here, so that what you can do is you can plan to ensure that that doesn't then happen. And that's less stressful all around. Some people can place the expectation that things are going to fail. That's a very deep conversation that might be useful to have another day as well. They're on your team and they seem to be cheering for you, but there's an undercurrent. They're white-anting you. They're undermining you. So anticipate what those problems might be and work them out. The third one is understand where others are coming from. Understand where others are coming from. What are their biases? Do you have a common history or a relationship here that you can refer to? What do you know their beliefs and their perspectives might be? And that way you can anticipate what they might expect of you. And if you're anticipating it, you can meet it head on, and it's less likely to surprise you. You're more able to manage it rather than having it manage you. So that's 3 tips for managing others' expectations. Now, managing expectations is all about our own emotional well-being. It helps us to build resilience and adaptability. The more you can manage your expectations, the less stress and anxiety you're likely to have. There's the potential for you to enhance your career because you demonstrate that you're not putting unrealistic expectations on people. You're communicating, you're actually helping people with clarity to understand that this is the performance that you're looking for. These are the behaviors that you're looking for from them. And because you're communicating with greater clarity, with greater confidence, it's going to have more impact, and that will lead to more positive relationships inside and outside of work. Yeah. So now it's around what are the next steps? What can you be doing to start to identify how you can unhook expectations that you may have? Well, there are a couple of things. The first one is to reflect on those possible expectations that you might be carrying. Now, we want full 3D color, all the gory details. We want all of that. And what works really well is not just to reflect on it and think about it, but actually to describe it out loud, to write it down, to read it so that you're saying it out loud. And when you've done that reflection, there are 3 key questions that I'd like you to ask. The first one of these, it's a double banger question. Are they true? Are they 100% true? So you've got all those gory details, you've got, in bright color, all the noise, all the emotions, as messy, as silly as it all may sound. Put all that down, and then that first question, are they true? Are they 100% true? The second question, the second question to ask yourself is this. What would you say to a friend? What would you say to a friend? Obviously, it's about those expectations. Be your own friend here and imagine what is it that you would say to a friend. The third question that goes in here is, what does this look like in practice? Meeting these expectations, what does it look like in practice? You might have expected that by the time you were 30, you had $1 million in the bank and you were successful and you were climbing the corporate ladder and you had two properties, $1 million in assets rather, 2 properties, whatever it might be. When you place those expectations, you read them out loud, start to ask some of these questions, then it comes down to, whoa, there's a huge reality of living up to that expectation that I'm placing on myself. What do I need to change here? And what can I actually take out of expectations and put into goals and targets so that I am deliberately stepping towards them? Because the reality of living up to some of those expectations is outrageous. Whenever I've done this activity myself or with my clients, we've had a lot of laughs along the way because we put some really weird expectations on ourselves. It's interesting. It's messy. It's going to take some time. It's not an overnight fix. This is something for you to actually be working through. Be deliberate. Because if you're not deliberate about it, your expectations will manage you instead of you managing them. Thank you so much for watching today. If you've got any questions or you've got any comments, please pop them in the platform that you're viewing this on, and we will get back to you to answer those or to engage with you regarding the comments. If you're watching replay, pop #replay. And we'll connect with you if you've got any questions or any comments. That's great. If what you would like to do is to learn more about identifying what your expectations are and how you might be able to unhook yourself from those, please reach out. I'm happy to support you. See you next week. Bye now.